Welcome. I am Dr. Diana Concannon. I'm a forensic psychologist. I am also Associate Provost at Alliant International University, where I also serve as Dean of the California School of Forensic Studies. I will be co-presenting today with Dr. Stephen Buckey, and we'll be talking about harnessing emotional contagion during this crisis. This is our inaugural kickoff of the Virtual Cafe, and today we're going to be talking about harnessing emotional contagion during this time to make a positive impact in our community. So we're going to be taping the session here. Know that the dialogue will not be preserved, but the first part of this will be, and we'll be sharing it with the larger community. So I'm going to take a moment here to share my screen. Now I'll be co-presenting with Dr. Steve Buckey. We will begin. So to start, I'm going to show a brief video that exemplifies the phenomena of emotional contagion and how it has presented during this crisis.
Nationwide, grocery stores are struggling to keep items on the shelves. This is a look at some in Macon this week. Toilet paper, bread, meat, and frozen foods either gone or ravaged through, sending several people going store to store to just get what they need for the week.
Spreads, many people are rushing out to buy hand sanitizer and toilet paper, but some people are actually stocking up on something very different. Local gun shops have been very busy.
Yeah, gun sales have been up since the outbreak began.
And people are not only stocking up on guns, but also marijuana. Check out this line outside the Cannabis Club in San Francisco yesterday. It appears people were panic buying weed. Now, meanwhile,
control the uncontrollable, and we don't need to control.
Those are a couple of examples of what we've seen in relation to emotional contagion during this pandemic. As you can see, it can be both adverse and positive. And on a fundamental level, what emotional contagion is the phenomena by which we connect. It's the way in which we mimic each other's affective states. So it has been called primitive empathy, because it is how we become part of a group. It's actually one of the ways in which we survive. It helps us to predict, to a certain extent, how others are going to act. It's also hardwired. It has a neurological basis. We've had functional MRI studies which demonstrate that when we observe others' affective states, including pain, disgust, pleasure, displeasure, the regions of our own brains that would be activated if we were experiencing those things ourselves are activated just by observing this behavior in others. We see this in a lot of different contexts, including in the sports world. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bucky now to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, so thank you, Diana. So I'm the director of training at CSPP San Diego for the PhD and PsyD programs. In addition to that, I was the psychologist for the San Diego Chargers for 26 years and am presently the psychologist for the San Diego Padres. And the emotional contagion issue is extremely important given those two roles, but also for my involvement with Alliant, because everybody is being affected by the virus. And the key issue in sports, which is why I was asked to participate in this talk, is that individuals are affected by the team, which is affected by the crowd, and that can both have a positive or negative effect. And that's something, as the topic suggests, has to be harnessed so the negative does not influence the individual performance and the team performance. So I'm going to give you an example of that. When somebody hits, so we'll focus on baseball, if somebody hits a home run, you see the player come around the bases and is excited, feels great typically, and as they get back to the dugout, are high-fiving everybody, which be interesting to see what happens once the baseball season starts, because the players have been told not to do that any longer. But they are high-fiving each other and hugging each other, and that enthusiasm has an impact potentially for the entire team and the crowd. Now, the reverse of that can also be true when somebody strikes out, or somebody's in a slump, or the team is in the middle of a losing streak. That also can have a significant emotional effect on the individual and the team. And the players essentially need to learn how to cope with those emotional situations so that their performance is positively affected by the positive and not so negatively affected by the negative, which is not, by the way, very easy to learn. But I can see over the years, when I get to know the players well, that they learn that skill. They can put this aside and capitalize if things are negative, and capitalize when things are positive. Key issue in sports that I think is worth paying attention to for this topic is that the players generally think of themselves as part of a family. Their family is the rest of the players on the team. And that has, as a psychologist, has a significant effect on me in terms of how I talk to the players. So, for example, I seem to be the only one concerned about confidentiality. So when I'm talking about any kind of personal issue with the players, I give them the opportunity to go into a private space, and they generally do not want to do that. They want to talk in front of what they consider their family. And the other issue I want to mention about family in sports is that's a frequently used term, and that requires some effort. One just doesn't become a family. One needs to make some effort and have some allegiance to one another and deal with the positives and negatives of that family. And over time, that is learned by the players, and certainly has to be learned by players coming into the league. So I think I'll stop there, Diana, till we see how we want to proceed.
Excellent, thank you. Well, to Steve's point as well, I mean, some of the dynamics that we see in the sports context certainly hold for this context as well. The type of negativity that can develop and that can permeate some of the locker room environments, certainly, that we want to inoculate against in that context is certainly something we would like to inoculate against during this time. Individuals are at a heightened emotional state, so there will be there's the possibility of being around individuals, particularly as we're social distancing and we are in close proximity to a small number of people who are experiencing elevated levels of anxiety or depression, and we need to know how to prevent that from spreading to our own emotional and affective states. Knowing that there is this contagion factor, knowing that this is an automatic process and we will have a tendency to experience this. We also know from the research that we have a top-down opportunity. In other words, we can use our minds to pause the automatic response that we might have. And we can stop the contagion just simply through basic self-care, good nutrition, exercise, and sleep, so that we have the wherewithal to pause our automatic emotional response, connecting and with others, that we don't even necessarily have to have a positive attitude, but connecting with others that are calm and rational when we're feeling our own anxiety levels rise, or when we're feeling the contagion from others who have heightened levels of anxiety or other adverse reactions. Connecting with a rational other and talking it through helps also to calm the adverse contagion. And then, of course, if we are in proximity over extended periods of time with individuals who tend to be negative, it's important to recognize that we need to take breaks from those individuals. It is very unlikely, particularly if we're dealing with adults, that we're going to change the way that they view the world. However, it is also particularly important that we don't expose ourselves to them unduly over prolonged periods of time, knowing that that will have an influence on our own worldview. Conversely, we can leverage emotional contagion at this time to make a positive difference in the world, and that is critically important. During times when individuals are in an adverse situation, we have the opportunity to influence the way in which individuals and our communities are experiencing this pandemic. And so one of the things is to recognize that we all have a tendency to reach out when we're feeling badly. This is a time to reach out when we're feeling particularly happy, and we will all have those experiences when we are feeling positive. Those are the times to reach out to others, knowing that our own positivity could be contagious. And we've seen that most recently with healthcare workers and the applause that they are getting when they are entering and leaving their places of work. This is really important during this time so that we can not only protect ourselves from adverse emotional contagion, but actually make a positive impact when it is really needed. So thank you for listening to this presentation, and we appreciate your time.